Hi everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be making this very cute and very simple sew. This is a great and easy one for beginners because there is no closures, there's no zippers, there's no buttons, there's no odd ties going on, just the ties at the shoulders, so it's a very simple pattern to follow. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get started. Here I've created my own pattern where you can see how I've done the shoulders up to create this tie. Honestly, the front and the back are very similar, except the back neck is a little bit higher. Everything else I've done the exact same. All I did was take a copy from another bodice pattern. You can find tons online for free. If you need a link to one that I used, I'm more than happy to do that. And then I just put it down and just changed the shoulders. That is all I did. Alright, so here I have all the pieces cut out. I have two separate skirt pieces because my fabric didn't go long enough for me to do one single piece. Also having the two works better for the seams. So I did that, and I'll put the length over here on the side. And then I did two front and two back pieces. So the reason for that is that one will be a lining on each side. It also makes it super easy to do it the same fabric because then you don't have to worry about which is the right side and which is the wrong side. I always like to take my pattern pieces and just kind of put them together just so I can get an idea of what the dress will look like. It also just helps me visualize so I don't make the same mistakes over and over again. Alright, here it's pretty simple. You're just going to take your right sides together for each of your bodice pieces. So on the top here, I'm just placing all the pieces together. Now that you have the pieces together, you are just going to sew along the armhole, up through the shoulder, the neck, and down. You are not going to do the side seam at all. Don't do it or you'll kind of mess it up there. So just the arm up to the shoulder, neck, shoulder, and the other arm, and no down the sides. And do the same to both sides. Before starting any project, it is a great idea to use a scrap piece from the fabric and just to run it through your machine on different settings so you can get the best feel for it. Here I am using a very soft knit fabric, so I have decided to do a zigzag stitch around the fabric because I feel like it holds better, it keeps the stretch, and I don't have to worry about any stitches breaking. So that's the stitch that I've decided to go with. If you're using a simple woven cotton, of course you just want to do a straight stitch, but the best thing to do is just to try it out yourself. Now that you have your bodice pieces done, it is time to flip them right side out. Pretty easy, just stick your hand right in there and start flipping around. You might need to use a pencil or some other kind of straight blunt object to help you get all the way around and get those edges to be nice and rounded out. Alright, so this part can be a little bit tricky. The first time I did it, I ended up doing it completely wrong. Had to unstitch and do it again, but practice certainly does make perfect. So here I'm putting the front on top of the back piece. And like I said, because my lining and my outside are the same, I don't really care which one's the correct one. So I don't really have to worry about which one is the inside and which one's the outside. But take careful note of that if you are using a different fabric. So here on the sides, what you're going to do is match up the sides and you're going to open it up just like so. And then you are going to stitch straight across that. And you're going to do the same for the other side. This will allow all of your stitching to be on the inside. So here you can see that I have a stitch. And then when I fold it back down, and you'll kind of see that it feels like you're kind of folding it inside out, but basically all that stitching will just get folded inside, and you don't see anything, it's perfect for little kids because they're not feeling anything, nothing's bothering them. And that is how you do a lining inside the bodice. Now this is the part that I haven't really decided about. So typically I would do a top stitch all the way around the edging. That would kind of just keep the lining from not coming out, and kind of the edges would look a little bit more crisp. However, this is a very soft knit fabric, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not. I think I'll decide a little bit later. But simply the shoulders will just tie here, either in a single knot or double knot, and it'll be super easy. Also, with it being a knit fabric, it'll be a little bit stretchy and have some give. Now here at the bottom of this, we're going to fold in, and we're going to kind of tuck in our skirt around that. So let's move on to the skirt. Just make sure to put right sides together and sew the sides together so it's making one long loop, and that will be your skirt. Then you can decide which side is your bottom hem. So I'm having it like this, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take that top part, and about a 1/4 inch from the top you are going to do a basting stitch. It's basically the longest stitch setting that your sewing machine has, and you're not going to backstitch at all. You're just going to sew across the entire thing, and then you will be able to pull at it and it will scrunch it up. I prefer to do the gathering method because I find it easier, but you could also do strategic pleats. I think it just takes a little bit more time and effort to make all those perfect pleats and make sure that they go around nicely. So here is my basting stitch. So you just pull the bottom thread only, so whichever one was sewn from the bobbin. So if you just slowly pull it, and you want to make sure that you're really careful because you can snap the thread and then you have to do it all over again. A lot of people will do 2 or 3 rows of this basting stitch so it doesn't snap the thread, but I find if you just work at it slowly and you have good thread, that everything works out just with the one stitch. Now you're going to keep working this around. It'll take just a couple minutes, and you're going to make sure that you get enough little wrinkles and pleats in there until you match the length of your bodice. Now that we've completed that, you are just going to fold in the top layer of your bodice, and you're just going to fold it in about a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. It kind of just depends on how much seam allowance you gave yourself. And then you want to make sure it's on that side because the lining, we want it to be able to cover it. So this takes a bit of practice, but what I'm going to do is fold it inside out so that I know that the lining is on the outside now, and I'm just going to fold it out and just get it out of the way so I know that I'm pinning it to the correct side. I find this to be the most helpful method at first. So now taking my seams, I'm going to match it up to the other seams, and then I'm going to stick the skirt right in and match it to that seam there, and then match the other seam as well. And then just very carefully I'm going to pin around the entire thing and just kind of adjust the gathering as I go to make sure it's even all the way around. After I pinned everything, I very slowly flipped it back out because I wanted the gathering to be on top as I'm stitching. This way I can make sure that nothing is getting caught or being pulled in the wrong direction. And I know that the bottom is just supposed to be nice and smooth and flat, and so I can feel that with my fingers. I've tried it the other way and have gotten things caught in the needle and it just doesn't turn out as well. So I really suggest making sure that you can see your pleats on the top. Now that the skirt is sewn in, I flipped it inside out so you can see it connected together. And now what you'll do is you'll fold the raw edge of the lining inward, and then what you can do is pin across here, covering up all of your raw edges. And then you can do something called stitch in the ditch, which is stitching right at that point that you had connected the dress on the outside. And if you do that, then the stitching is completely hidden, and that's a great way to be able to close in the lining. Another way to do it, sometimes I find when you do stitch in the ditch that sometimes things will pull or snag, and when you can't see, mistakes can happen. So if you do have time, I highly recommend just doing a hand stitch across the bottom. I think it'll look a lot better, then you don't have to worry about any mistakes happening, but it does take time to hand stitch it, so most people would not go with that option. This is also a knit fabric, so honestly, even if I didn't do anything, the fabric isn't going to unravel or anything. It's also still soft, and it might get pulled here and there, but I don't really see it going anywhere. So kind of have a couple of options, and I'll kind of see what I decide later. Alright, so here some decisions are up to you. You could create a basic hem by folding it once and then twice, making sure that you do that evenly all the way around. Or you could close it up with some bias tape. After kind of playing around with how it looks, I did decide to go ahead and use bias tape. It did change the feel of my dress, but I personally liked it. Here you can see that my dress is pretty much complete. I decided to do the edge with bias tape, and then I decided to go around the waist as well. And when I went and pinned the bias tape, I was able to attach the back of the lining, and so I just sewed it down. I also did end up doing a top stitch. It's just kind of one of those last finishing things that you do. I wasn't sure at first, but after practicing with some of the knit fabric, it still held really well and had a good stretch, so I decided to go ahead and top stitch. Here I have my adorable 4-month-old just kind of modeling the dress right now. I made this dress for about a 6 to 12-month-old baby. You can tell that there is a little bit of room in her waist, and she has about 3 or 4 inches to really grow into this dress. Don't forget to leave your questions and comments below, and thanks again for watching.